Well, Mick, thank you so much for joining us. I know that our membership is incredibly excited about hearing your perspective and everything like that. Obviously, we want to thank you for the relationship with between ASHRAE and the BCA. And we're looking forward to a great year. And you should earn a couple gold stars for all the work that you're putting in. So
sounds great. Thanks for having me.
I think one of our first topics that we'll talk about today is sustainability. So this is a big buzzword. I know just from our brief interaction, I can see that it's having a big impact with where you are as well. When you talk about electrification, is that really feasible, do you think?
One, I don't think, I'm not necessarily in agreement that sustainability or electrification are buzzwords. There are things that are happening today. People are trying to become better environmental stewards. They're trying to put together their environmental and sustainability goals for a corporation, and they're trying to reduce emissions. And there are different ways to do things. Sometimes people use the terms decarbonization and electrification as though they're synonymous. I don't go that way. In fact, I just gave 4 decarbonization presentations last week, and in 4 of our different chapters. And electrification is basically changing from burning something at a site to using electricity. Now, if the goal is decarbonization, whether or not it decarbonizes is dependent on the emissions from the electrical grid to which the building's attached. So it's really a mix of those two, scope 1, the building, and scope 2, the electric grid, that define the decarbonization potential and the reduction in emissions. There are some places where electrification is harder. I live in Wisconsin, and when it gets to be minus 40 degrees, the heat pump technologies available today don't work. And electric resistance heat, I was just talking with a young lady I saw at our church on Saturday night, and she said her electric resistance heat bill was really, really high the last couple months, which because she lives in an older house, it's rented, and the landlord puts in the least expensive type of heat, electric resistance. But there are technologies that work. The places I was below in the US, the Mason-Dixon line, the West Coast, the Northwest, are pretty temperate climates. Heat pumps can do very well there. In other climates, heat pumps can work down as far as 0. Some go down to minus 17 degrees Fahrenheit. But we have to look at how we design the systems and how we operate the systems. If the temperatures from an extreme point go below those temperatures, we likely have to have some type of backup heat. But again, if the goal is to decarbonize, let's make sure we're looking at the scope 1 and the scope 2 emissions together.
Yeah, that's interesting. So it sounds like it's not a matter of if or when, it's already here. And it's just a matter of how at this point, huh?
I would say definitely. In my day job, when I get to do it this year, it's the topic we spend the most time on. Yeah. A lot of people are doing it in a lot of different locations. And it's not just locales that put in together mandates to do it.
So are you seeing actual...
CEOs are being graded on their environmental and sustainability goals by the financial analysts. Universities are doing it because they want to attract students who are interested in it. So it goes beyond just some local mandates that people think. So it's not just a political thing, it's business and it's environmental and what people are looking to do.
So you've seen investors actually making buy decisions based on sustainability targets or certifications?
One of the top stockholders in the world started rating companies on their environmental and sustainability goals, and it's been a while now. And that certainly has affected how companies act and the business decisions they make and the investments they make so that they can become more sustainable, reduce their environmental emissions, et cetera.
So when they're doing those ratings, is ESG, is that the dominant rating? Is it embodied carbon? What's the key metric that you see?
Oh, wow, that one is a deep question, and I know I'm not smart enough to answer that. There are a lot of different metrics being looked at. Embodied carbon is how much energy and how many emissions went into making the materials, getting them to the site, constructing the building. and that is being looked at. There's no one metric for embodied carbon today. It's pretty simple to measure and monitor emissions within the building, the site, and it's pretty simple. We're getting a lot more data from the utilities, and frankly, already the utilities in the US that have changed from using coal to natural gas have already significantly reduced their emissions. And perhaps they don't always get that credit for that, but most of them do have plans to further clean up the grid, put more renewables on that grid. Storage technologies for the electricity are being used. I wouldn't say they're widely used today, but certainly when we see battery plants being put in by various manufacturers, it seems to be something that's people are investing in for the future.
Sure. So what have you been doing, and what will you be doing as ASHRAE to kind of stay ahead of the sustainability game?
We're trying to stay ahead or get with or whatever it is and help collaborate with other organizations. President Gullidge, last year's president, and I put into place a task force for building decarbonization. It is looking at all the technologies, looking at all the definitions, but also trying to figure out who do we collaborate with? Because there are other people throughout the world who've been working on this for longer than we have. So rather than invent something new, how do we collaborate to figure out how to measure it? But even more importantly, how do we actually deliver? When I was chair of the 90.1 committee, I often said I'd rather save one real BTU than 100,000 paper BTUs. The goals, the levels put out don't really matter until they actually start reducing the emissions to the atmosphere and make us better stewards of what we've been given.
Yeah, great point. Well, thank you so much, Mick. Wonderful,
Pleasure.
great points.